Best Drone 2020, Fly. Shoot 4K video and grab high-res photos with the best drones. Trying to figure out the best drone to buy right now? We've got good news and bad news. The good news is that in recent years, drones, or unmanned aerial vehicle, UAV, as absolutely no one outside of the military calls them, have evolved beyond all recognition. The bad news is that there are now so many to choose from that finding the right one can be a bit of a minefield. This is precisely why we've put together this guide. Read on for our pick of the best drones available right now, or more specifically, the best camera drone, including models for every type of flyer and all budgets. But before you browse our top recommendations, check out our short guide to the most important points to consider when buying a drone. Looking for a drone bargain? Keep an eye on our Amazon Prime Day hub when it comes to the best drones. Specifically camera drones. The brand that stands far above the rest is still DJI. This is reflected by the fact that DJI fills numerous positions in our list below, and markedly most of the top spots. If DJI's eminently affordable Mavic Mini isn't awesome enough for you, the brand's new, larger Mavic Air 2 is a top low-cost choice that shoots much higher quality videos and stills. DJI's iOS and Android apps are also excellent. And then the dedicated controller is there if you want to take the drone much further than mobile Wi-Fi will allow. Of the more toy-like brands, Rise Robotics Tello is the new leader. It's easy to fly, it shoots decent video and you can even program it yourself. Parrot, meanwhile, has taken a big step onto DJI's more premium turf with the excellent Anafi. This insect-like drone rivals the Mavic Air for video quality and features. In several respects, it can't quite match DJI's little flyer, notably there's no obstacle avoidance, but it wins out on pricing compared to its DJI rival. In order to figure out which is the best drone for you, it really helps to understand a bit about how different types of drone work. In a nutshell, drones rely on rotors for propulsion and control. The faster these rotors spin, the greater the upward lift. The movement of a drone can be changed by altering the speed of one or more of its rotors. These rotors are powered by motors which can be brushed or brushless. The difference: brushed motors use a mechanical process, a commutator, to move the magnetic field that turns the rotors. Brushless motors, which are usually found on more expensive drones, are generally preferable, and rely more on electronics, rather than additional physical parts such as the brushes in the commutators. To generate power, this means they generate less friction, and bear in mind that friction slows the motor down, produce less heat and provide better all-round performance. Another important factor to take into consideration is skill level. Beginners should look for more rugged models, as well as features such as rotor protectors and one-touch recall controls. But don't make the mistake of assuming smaller, lighter drones are better for beginners. These drones are often designed for those keen to perform complex aerial maneuvers, and might well be trickier to control. Finally, remember to look for drones with the features you're specifically keen on, and no more. Opting for a drone which boasts features you don't need and won't use will mean you'll spend more on a drone which will weigh more and won't perform in the way you want it to. DJI's Mavic Mini is unequivocally the best high-quality camera-carrying drone for the masses. It weighs a floaty 249 grams fully loaded, which is 1 gram shy of needing to register it with the CAA. Read more on that. You are a clever little sausage. DJI, which is why your Tichy Sky Buzzer has just waltzed out of the room with this year's T3 award for Best Drone. Size-wise, this drone is so small it can be hidden under an iPhone 11 and easily tucked into a pair of chinos. Its low weight, small size and flexible front propeller arms also give it a better chance of surviving a crash. The Mavic Mini's camera shoots 1080p video at up to 60 frames per second and crisp 2.7K at up to 30 FPS. Believe us, 2K is plenty sharp enough for the average computer monitor. Its 12MP stills, meanwhile, are nicely detailed. Despite the size, the craft is surprisingly stable in flight and fast and nimble when flown in sport mode. It will easily fly for up to 30 minutes on a single charge and up to 4 kilometers away, far beyond the CAA's line of sight regulation. However, one thing this drone doesn't have is obstacle avoidance. But we don't think this is a deal breaker if common sense prevails. The Mavic Mini is available in 2 packages, the basic bundle, hand controller, flight battery, charger, spare props, 32GB micro SD card and a bunch of different phone cables, and the Fly More combo, which also comes with a fabulous herringbone carry case, 4 batteries, a charger for charging 4 batteries at once and propeller guards for indoor flight. If you've always hankered after a top quality camera drone but didn't fancy the idea of splashing out a fortune, then this is the model for you. It's remarkably stable and reliable in flight. A doddle to control, and it shoots ravishingly good cinematic footage to boot. The outgoing DJI Mavic Air is still a true pocket rocket that excels in every department. It also won Best Drone at the T3 Awards 2019, but can the Chinese drone behemoth's successor compete for airspace? Against all expectations, the new Mavic Air 2 is actually closer in size to its bigger brethren Mavic 2 Pro and Zoom than it is to its predecessor. And a little heavier. It's not as pretty either. Which of course isn't a problem once it's in the air. What might be an issue for some is that it is only a few centimeters shorter than the Mavic 2 and much bigger than the Mavic Mini and therefore not quite as portable. Believe us, size is a key consideration with drones and often a deciding factor when it comes to a choice between taking the drone or leaving it at home. Niggles aside, everything else about this drone shouts by me. Its low selling price, £769 included. The camera is a cracker and sports a half-inch sensor capable of shooting 4K footage at 60 fps. The Mavic Air 2's stills taking capacity is even more impressive, up to 48MP resolution for unprecedented sharpness, clarity and detail. It also comes with a smorgasbord of extra photo and video enhancement tech, including scene recognition, Spotlight 2.0, which locks the camera on a subject while the pilot does the flying, and the obligatory active track for following moving subjects. The completely redesigned hand controller is another major improvement. Yes, it's larger than before, but it's really comfortable in the hand, and it has a phone mounting system that is way better than the current models. The Mavic Air 2 has a longer battery life too, 34 minutes, and in sport mode it rips across the sky at up to 42.5 miles per hour, that's fast. It also features 3-way obstacle avoidance, improved APAS, Advanced Pilot Assistance System, for smoother maneuverability around obstacles, and a new soon-to-be-included flight safety measure called AirSense, which informs the drone pilot of any aircraft in the vicinity. For this writer, the little Mavic Mini is still number 1 simply because it's the drone I'm more likely to reach for on a regular basis and not require a license for. But for sheer outright video and photographic quality, this is inarguably the model to get. At just £769. It's a veritable bargain. If you're looking for a titchy but very well equipped, selfie-type drone that stays in the air for 13 minutes at a time, comes with digital image stabilization, shoots video in pretty decent 720p, snaps 5MP stills and hovers on the spot without the aid of GPS, then consider this remarkable little contender from Rise. It didn't win the T3 award for Best Budget Drone for nothing. If you think the Tello is the first drone to reach the higher echelons of this page that doesn't have any connection to DJI, then think again, because most of the electronics inside this remarkable entry-level model are produced by none other than, you guessed, DJI. This is a very good thing because, aside perhaps from Parrot, DJI's flight controllers and other electronic gubbins are the industry benchmark for efficiency and reliability. The Tello weighs just 80 grams and measures 98 millimeters at its widest point. In other words, it's small enough to tuck in a jacket pocket despite not being foldable like the DJI Mavic range. Although designed for indoor flying, this little craft is also adept at flying outdoors. As long as it's not too windy, without GPS on board, it could drift with the breeze and may not make it back to you. To fly it, simply launch the Tello app on your phone. Select hand launch. Throw it into the air and steer it using the virtual joysticks. Everything the camera sees is streamed to the phone, and because it has digital stabilization, the footage it shoots is remarkably smooth, not Mavic smooth but stable enough nonetheless. Like the similarly styled DJI Spark. The app also comes with a few pre-programmed EZ shots including circle and drone, flying away from the pilot while automatically filming at the same time. The Tello has a 100 meters range, more than enough distance for most videography and photography purposes, and for those who want a drone that does aerobatics. It will do that too. But here's the really clever bit. Using the separate Tello Edu app, iOS and Android, it's possible to program the Tello to perform a series of maneuvers with no real-time input from the pilot. Just drag a series of named color-coded blocks, take off, fly forward, land, into a specific order, and the Tello will follow the commands. This is an incredible development because it's actually teaching kids and adults the basics of robotics in an easy and fun way. The other really cool thing about this drone is that it only costs £99. That's less than $100 for a programmable drone that's a doddle to fly. Shoots stabilized 720p footage and takes decent photos. Now that's progress for you. This pro-spec drone is almost impossible to crash given that it has 10 obstacle sensors facing in every direction. To put these omnidirectional sensors to the test, I selected the autonomous, active track, follow me mode on the forever impressive DJI Go 4 app. Drew a rectangle around my body on the Samsung S10 screen. It also works with iOS. Hit go and went for a slow walk between a grove of small trees. The results were frankly unbelievable. Scary even, like something out of the Terminator. The drone automatically ducked and dived as it negotiated a pathway between the leafy branches, never coming to grief despite a few leaf trimming moments. Even more astonishing was the fact that the footage it shot showed no signs of jerkiness. It was as if I'd been tracked by someone holding a stabilized camera. So, that's your first reason to buy one. The second reason is the stunning 3-axis gimbal-mounted Hasselblad camera, which comes fitted with a 1-inch CMOS sensor, like that in the Sony RX100 and RX10 series, and an adjustable aperture that goes from f2.8 to f11. This is an exquisite piece of kit capable of shooting in several video resolutions, including 4K at up to 30 frames per second, 2.7K at up to 60 FPS and 1080p at up to 120 FPS. It also takes strikingly sharp 20-megapixel RAW stills. The Mavic 2 Pro's camera system supports the 10-bit D-Log-M color profile for pro-style post-production color grading and 10-bit HDR video for striking hyper-real footage. Flight-wise, the Mavic 2 Pro is as rock-solid and confidence-inspiring as we've come to expect. At no point will you fear it'll just fly off into the sunset on its own, never to be seen again. With new, larger motors fitted to its 4 arms, the drone is now capable of hitting 44 miles per hour in sports mode and, with the aid of a larger battery, able to remain aloft for up to 31 minutes at a time. It's also really quiet, so hushed you can hardly hear it from just 30 meters away. Its OcuSync 2.0 transmission, meanwhile, offers crisp 1080p live streaming from up to 5 miles away. Like the early Mavic, this one also comes with 8 GB of onboard storage along with the obligatory micro SD card slot. The hand controller is pretty much the same as the original, though it does have an additional 3-way speed switch, normal, sports or tripod for slow cinematic shots, for extra convenience. Heading over to the DJI Go 4 app, the Mavic 2 Pro comes with a cluster of intelligent flight modes, plus the addition of a hyperlapse function that captures stop-frame visuals over a wide area before stitching it all together within the app. In fact, the only intelligent flight mode missing here is the gimmicky, gesture, hand control. Rather like a car manufacturer launching different variants of the same model. DJI's Mavic 2 Zoom has the same DNA as its stablemate the Mavic 2 Pro. Both birds are the same size and pretty much the same weight. The Pro is a measly 2 grams heavier. And they're both equipped with the same multi-directional obstacle avoidance systems and the very same internals. In fact, the only difference between the two is the camera they're equipped with, where the Pro comes with a Hasselblad camera replete with 1-inch sensor for professional High-quality aerial photography. The zoom forfeits image resolution in favor of a 2x optical zoom with a 35mm format equivalent focal length of 24-48mm. However, when it comes to 4K video, both models boast the same rosy specs, 4K at up to 30 fps, 2.7K at up to 60 fps, 1080p at up to 120 fps. So this is the model to buy if you plan to shoot far more video than you do stills. You might not use the zoom facility much, but it certainly comes into its own when you want to shoot animals without scaring the shit out of them, or getting closer to an interesting subject without straying into private airspace, or simply grabbing a money shot without having to fly beyond line of sight, illegal. As it happens, of course, one of the first things most new owners will do is select the dolly zoom function from the Mavic 2 Zoom's submenu and bore YouTube users with a surfeit of vertigo-style snippets of themselves standing in front of a large subject like a monument or a mountain, while the whole background lunges forward behind them as if it were pumped up on steroids. It's a brilliant effect used by Hitchcock, Spielberg and other directors, but it will wear thin. Perhaps the most attractive thing about the Mavic 2 Zoom is its price. It's £250 less than the Pro, and yet it shoots the same quality video while sharing the same superb flying characteristics. However, there may come a time when you wish to shoot some ravishing raw high-res aerial stills to impress the masses on Flickr, Pexels and 500px. If that's the case, we'd recommend opting for the Mavic 2 Pro instead. This feature-packed, high-tech drone does it all. Although it's certainly been designed with intermediate advanced photographers in mind, the drone's camera, mounted on a 3-axis stabilizing gimbal, records video at 4K resolution up to 60 frames per second, up there with the new DJI Mavic Air 2, and has a recording speed up to 100 Mbps in an H.264/H.265 codec. The camera's one of the best we've seen on a drone at this price point, making it easy to catch more detail and color, even when filming at high speed. And a generous number of sensors help you avoid other objects while also making it wonderfully easy to land. We're also particularly impressed with the 3.3-inch OLED screen which has been integrated into the controller. This, coupled with the drone's compact, foldable design, unusual for one packed with such an impressive range of tech, makes it ideal for those who love to dash out the door with the drone at a moment's notice. While it's not cheap, the large number of accessories it comes bundled with means this prosumer drone is excellent value for money. Despite its replacement reviewed above, the DJI Mavic Air is still a true pocket rocket that excels in every department. It also won Best Drone at the T3 Awards 2019. It's a lot lighter and smaller than the DJI Mavic Pro 2s and not much bigger than its smaller siblings, the Mini and earlier Spark. The 4K video quality from the Air's robust 3-axis camera system is very impressive, and its 12MP photos are highly detailed for such a small camera. It can also take 4 styles of panorama images. The Air can be controlled with palm gestures or a mobile phone, handy additions for those times when you can't be bothered to dig out the supplied hand controller. That said, flying with the hand controller is far and away the most satisfying way to operate it. It also lets you fly much further, up to 4 kilometers (2.48 miles) away and back again on a battery that lasts around 21 minutes. Believe us, that's more than enough time to film an opus. The Mavic Air's hand controller is smaller than the Mavic Pro's, and it doesn't come with an LCD screen, so you'll need to rely solely on the data and picture feed to your smartphone or mini tablet, iOS or Android. But that's no big issue as long as your mobile has enough battery. The element we love most, though, is the addition of obstacle avoidance sensors on the rear as well as to the fore and below the craft. Having so many safety features makes flying more confidence-inspiring than ever, especially in confined areas. However, beware of relying on obstacle avoidance if flying near trees with sparse foliage, as the sensors may not detect a wayward branch. The only real issue with the Air is the irritatingly high-pitched noise it makes, rather like a swarm of angry mosquitoes. But luckily, there's a solution in the form of some third-party propellers from the fantastically named Master Airscrew. Available in 3 shiny colors: black, Puce Pink and Sky Blue Master Airscrew's stealth propellers are not only quieter than DJI's stock props, but the sound frequency they emit is lower and a lot easier on the ears. We followed the instructions that came with the package and changed the Mavic Air's gain settings. And the result was a much quieter flight with zero effect on the craft's handling and stability. Although it's being superseded by the Mavic Air 2, this is still a reliable travel package that's fun to fly and very well equipped. Keep an eye on prices because it's likely to be heavily discounted in the coming weeks and months. The foldable Parrot Anafi is the first drone to take on DJI's squadron of premium consumer camera drones and not get shot down. It's a handy amount cheaper than the outgoing Mavic Air, and proves only a little less enjoyable to use and fly. Like the Mavic series, this drone collapses for easy transport, but it's not quite as pocketable due to its 244mm length when folded. Still, it comes in a great transport case that'll easily fit in a small shoulder bag. At just 320 grams, the Anafi is 110 grams lighter than the Mavic Air. Should it ever fall out of the sky, it is less likely to sustain major damage. Theoretically, at least. Despite it looking like a dragonfly, the Anafi was apparently inspired by the humblebee. Accordingly, it has its 3-axis gimbal and 4K 21-megapixel camera mounted directly in front of the drone. This means the props will never appear in shot when the drone is moving forward at high speed. It also means the camera can be pointed 90 upwards for a unique perspective that few other drones offer. The new Parrot FreeFlight 6 app for iOS and Android is very well designed and easy to get a handle on. Granted, it doesn't allow for as many camera, flight and gimbal tweaks as the DJI Go 4 app, but it's perfectly acceptable for first-time users. The HD image quality streaming from drone to phone is pretty impressive. In flight, the Parrot Anafi is not as confidence-inspiring as the Mavic Air. It loses quite a few points straight off by not having any obstacle avoidance. Nevertheless, it's easy to control and very stable in flight, even in a stiffish breeze. One very noticeable improvement over the Mavic Air is how quiet it is. In fact, it's so quiet you can hardly hear a thing while it's hovering just 20 meters above your head. At 33 miles per hour. It's also quite sprightly, but only in sport mode. On the plus side, the battery provides up to 25 minutes of flying time and can be charged via USB-C from any compatible portable charger. On the minus side, it takes hours to charge. So you might want to consider investing £90 in a spare battery. Having tested it in the field, literally, both video and photo quality seem on par with the Mavic Air 1, and in low light shooting it's arguably a bit better. It doesn't offer as high a frame rate as the Mavic Air, 30 fps in 4K versus the Mavic Air's 60 fps in 2.7K, but the 4K video and 21 megapixel images its 1/2.4-inch Sony CMOS sensor produces attack sharp, with excellent detail and contrast. The camera also supports HDR, high-density range shooting, and Adobe DNG RAW formats for more efficient post-production editing. The controller's gimbal rocker switch is nothing like as tactile as the Mavic Air's finger wheel, which makes slow, gentle tilting of the gimbal extremely tricky. Nevertheless, practice makes perfect. Overall, Anafi isn't up to the benchmark set by DJI. But Parrot's competitive pricing should mean it does very well, and deservedly so. RED5 is Menken's in-house brand. But don't let the fact that it's not a dedicated drone brand put you off. This model rivals many of those with a similar price tag, and packs a decent punch with both battery life, 17 minutes, and transmission range 150 meters. It's another drone which is great for those testing out the drone photography skills. The onboard camera produces crisp HD 1280x 720p video, and features such as altitude hold, critical return, route planner, and follow me modes allow you to concentrate on your photography skills, rather than worrying about your drone disappearing over that distant hill. The one downside is that it's not the most rugged of drones. Although if you're the type of flyer who loves to dash out of the house with the drone at short notice, this probably isn't a problem. It's incredibly light and compact, and folds into itself for easy transportation. Good value. If you're looking to get into FPV, first-person view, flying but want a drone that shoots much better aerial footage than the budget-priced Parrot Bebop 2 model reviewed below, then you might want to give this package a whirl. The unmanned FPV package includes the drone itself, reviewed above in case you missed it and in much more detail here. A Sky Controller 3-hand controller and a pair of Parrot's cockpit glasses 3. All 3 items come neatly packed in a small and stupendously well-designed grey herringbone backpack. For those unfamiliar with the concept, FPV is a bit similar to normal flying where the images from the drone's front-mounted camera are streamed live to a mobile phone. However, in this instance, the phone is clipped into the supplied goggles which you obviously wear on your head. This means you cannot see anything other than what the drone's camera is pointing at. It's a very strange, disorientating sensation at first, but once you get used to it, it's probably the closest you'll get to feeling the experience of actually flying, without killing yourself in the process. However, FPV does have its caveats. 1. You may feel nauseous. 2. Your sense of depth may be affected, so your first flights should always be in a wide open space with no obstacles around. 3. You can only see ahead, so avoid flying backwards for more than a few meters at a time. 4. You won't see that squadron of crows bearing down from behind. And 5. You'll have no idea if someone has crept up on you with a view to nicking your belongings. At £649. The unmanned FPV is pretty good value, but the jury's out on the quality of the visuals. The camera ports to the screen, they were a bit too fuzzy and pixelated in my opinion. And that was using an iPhone 11. Yes, they were perfectly acceptable to fly by and view the terrain ahead and below. But it was a bit like wearing 3D glasses. The two side-by-side images never really slotted perfectly together, even after fiddling with the lens distance controls. The upshot is that you may experience a sensation of double vision, which will almost certainly cause you to remove the goggles and rest the eyes for a few minutes. FPV flight is an acquired taste, and this package makes a very fair fist of it. However, you do need to be aware of the pitfalls lest you spend the extra outlay only to abandon the goggles after your first few flights. On the other hand, if you're sure it's the road you want to go down, then go for it. What could possibly go wrong when it comes to producing the very best cinema quality aerial footage? There is simply nothing out there to touch the Inspire 2. In fact, the only reason this drone isn't higher up our chart is because it is pricey with a capital P and large with a capital L. It also weighs a hefty 4.25 kilograms. So you can forget about sticking it in your hand luggage. The Inspire 2 is made from carbon fiber and magnesium, and its dual battery system, 4 huge motors and 13-inch propellers, will take it to a top speed of 58 miles per hour and a flight time of up to 27 minutes. The landing gear is retractable, allowing pilots, or a second camera operator, to shoot a full 360 panorama. It also comes with forward, downward and upward facing obstacle avoidance sensors for extra confidence when flying in tricky locations. The Inspire 2's Pro-Spec Cinecore 2.0 image processing system is housed in the nose of the craft, which means only the camera's lens and sensor are attached to the gimbal. This reduces weight and allows for easy camera swapping. And speaking of cameras, the Inspire 2 comes with a choice of 5 different models. From the compact Micro Four Thirds Zenmuse X5 to the ultra-high-end Zenmuse X7, which features a Super 35 sensor capable of shooting in 5.2K Apple PROs. Needless to say, the imagery this stunning cinematic system produces is of the very highest order. But, phew, it sure is costly. Potensix D80 Dual GPS brushless drone is a great option for those keen to get to grips with drone photography. It's packed with features that make it ideal for beginners. Whether that's the point of interest function, which programs the drone to fly clockwise around a single point and provide a comprehensive image of the object it's circling around, or the option to set custom designed flight paths. The latter allows you to use Potensix app to program your drone to follow preset routes. And it's a great way to test out your drone's capabilities. However, don't make the mistake of thinking this drone is for beginners and intermediates only. There are plenty of features to keep more accomplished flyers entertained. And with an impressive 300 meters transmission range and 20-minute battery life, You'll enjoy plenty of flying time. We also love the fact it's got a brushless motor, which is tougher and more long-lasting, ideal for those of you planning to put your drone through its paces. Civil Aviation Authority (CAA) has some regulations regarding drone ownership and flying. In a nutshell, all owners of drones weighing between 250 grams and 20 kilograms are, by law, required to register online as a drone operator and take and pass an online education test. Registration costs £9 and must be renewed annually, so you don't get yourself into a pickle in a public place. There's also some basic rules you need to follow. We'd like to think that nobody needs to be told any of the above. And in truth, anyone who does fly a drone near aircraft probably deserves to go to prison. Sure, we don't know that a drone can bring down a 747. But we are very sure that we also don't want to test the theory. Ever. If you're in doubt about drone regulations and are confused about where you can and can't fly your drone, head to the Civil Aviation Authority website and gen up on the current drone regulations. You can also check out Drone Code UK, which has a handy downloadable PDF with essential information regarding drone flying rules. Now, with those stern words out of the way, you can head back to our expert guide to the best camera drones available right now, listed in order of excellence. Or simply peruse this handy list of the cheapest prices on those drones. Text source, t3.com.